Hey guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor. Today we're going to talk about legacy and leaving impact. So last week was probably one of the most nostalgic athletic award ceremonies I've attended because as I hit 50 this year, and it's obviously a milestone, I attended a coach, friend, and mentor's induction ceremony for the High School Hall of Fame that he coached at for the past 20 plus years. And the award banquet was filled with so many faces, athletes that I trained, 20 years ago. And the thing that hit me the most were the kind words and being back there, because one of the things that I talked about my guys with my podcast crew, why I'd be so excited to talk about this was being able to kind of go out my way. And I didn't get to do that. And Friday night, I sat there among friends, family, athletes that I trained that I'm now friends with. They were babies and younger than my kids now, believe it or not, and now have babies of their own and kids of their own. And we were just reminiscing about the workouts and the effort put forth and the amount of sweat and tears and sacrifice and the results, the wins, and learning from losses. And one of the amazing things, and to pay a huge amount of respect for the input, insight, advice, loyalty, and life lessons that Coach Lou Piccola always taught me was family, respect, and loyalty. And when I saw these young men and their family members, you know, some of their parents had passed, and the mom or dad that was there saw me right away and jumped up and gave me the biggest, heartiest hug ever. Because those times were when their kids were babies and they were still, sheltering them and feeding them and taking them everywhere, and were an integral part of their life. And just like everything else, as we age and time goes by, these things change, and we all change and evolve. But replaying the night, I was blown away, to pay some respect to Coach Piccola. He had people fly in from all over the country. One key figure was Chris Mullin, NBA Hall of Famer that he coached in high school. And I got a picture with him and Coach, and how we began talking was he had a brother that passed from cancer that was an amazing human that I had actually trained his sons, and he lived out here. And I had a picture with him from a basketball camp. It was called Cougar Camp that I worked every year. And it was Coach Piccola, myself, and Rod Mullin, God rest his soul. And what a great guy. And always had a smile on his face, and just was just one hell of a person. And, but when we were going through and talking, I was kind of reminiscing, but also kind of didn't know whether to be sad or happy. It was kind of surreal sitting there looking at kids now that, had gone on, played college basketball. And, one, for instance, I had a ton of one-on-one time with him. He went on to be the Shore Conference Player of the Year, a 3-time All-American at MIT, and top 5 all time in many categories. And, the accomplishments that he had, he was such a sharp kid then, and now even more, he acknowledged the amount of emphasis that I put on athletic enhancement and being, a specimen in whatever sport you did. And now at 50, I pivoted. I said, if I couldn't be Doc on the basketball court, I needed to find something that I could do and work hard at it. And again, I'm a newbie at this bodybuilding thing, and it's taught me so much about having that next chapter. But let's stay here on legacy, hearing him speak and then have his dad get up and, have the honor of introducing and welcoming his son and presenting him with his Hall of Fame induction. It was wonderful to see, Dr. Cates talk about myself and the amount of work and the amount of attention I put into the details. And, much to their credit, I could easily not been brought up, and, it was something that was very special to me. This was their day. And, I think that I've always said, when people said, why do you, my friends would always say, John, you do so well with the healthcare. Why do you do the training? And I always said, it's like being Peter Pan. Like, you feel ageless. You're out there with these kids, and it keeps you in the best shape, gives you a reason to work so hard, to work through the pain, to work through the reps, to work through the mindset of one more rep to get better and inspire them. And when you see them having the accomplishments like Mitch did with, being a, first team all shore, I think he was all state, again, winning the prestigious, the player of the year award and everything he did in college beyond. I think the stats, and I've had many kids do this, but like, I don't believe MIT was like ever ranked in basketball. And the years that he was there, they were, I even think, preseason number 1 in the country. So what a huge, noted level of respect to pay him for having such and being part of such amazing accomplishment. And when, the head coach was brought in and was talking, all the coaching staff and the players and everybody were there speaking with him. And, one of the things that really, got me was when he was speaking, and I could so feel this and understood it, because there was a decade from 30 to 40 that I was always on the road. I was always in a gym, and, I loved it. And it was my income. It was my job. But it was a privilege to work with those kids. But at the same time, there was a sacrifice. And that was me not being with my kids, putting that time into them. And I was blessed. I had an amazing wife and still do. And she brought my babies to me wherever I was. And I remember, getting home the next day, I looked and I saw a picture when my son, who's now 19 and a freshman at Sacred Heart, was in a little jumper, a little mini version of what I got on today. And it was just like it was yesterday. And, you don't realize, because when Coach was saying for 50 years, his wife was by his side in the stands filming, locking it down, when he was presented the Hall of Fame induction placard award, he gave it to them. He gave it to his wife and his kids, and it hit me. Like, even right now, I'm getting a little teared up, because when in life, when you meet your person and, they give so much and they sacrifice so much to see you live out your dream, it's their dream too. And that trophy isn't your trophy. It's your family's trophy. And I was beyond proud to call Coach Picola my friend, mentor, and at that moment. And, as he was talking, the players, we talk about this and you say, legacy, this school kind of really put me on the map, because there was a stretch and a few of the boys were there from this group, and they won 85% of their games over a 4-year stretch. And 3 of them were brought up to varsity right away as freshmen, which was, a rarity, and, only happens to special talent. And they didn't disappoint. They won at a high percentage for 4 years. And, all the boys that were there, from the one boy that had the untimely accident his senior year, that I thought he was my, most valuable player that year. If he stays healthy, he had worked so hard. He was 6'10", 6'11", and absolutely a dominating force on the inside, and wasn't always. And I mean, literally, we had to basically start with like walking and chewing gum with him. And by his senior year, right before the injury, this kid was taking shots off the top of the backboard and dunking on everybody. And it was just special to watch. And again, unfortunately, you can never predict accidents or, untimely situations. And, he missed a playoff run, but there was no doubt in my mind that they would have made a deep run in the TOC that year, which is the Tournament of Champions, if all those parts are in place. So just being a part of that and reliving those memories and the work was just absolutely exceptional. So, that was that chapter. And the team, the early team, I didn't have all the kids. I had bits and pieces. And unfortunately, one of the players wasn't there that was probably one of my best individual achievements and spent the most time with him during that time. Now I believe he's actually probably close to 40, so not that far away from me in age. And the work that we put in was unbelievable. I always tell people, we were working on an outdoor court. We couldn't get anywhere. It was late summer. It was probably August. And I don't even think I lived in Colts Neck yet. And we were working out, and the landscape staff was there, and they were, had to be well over 100 degrees with the temperature on the court. And we were going for 2-3 hour clips at a time. We'd sit down, take some water, get back out there and keep working, keep shooting, keep running, keep training. That the workers came from under the tree and gave us water and oranges. And I was like, T, I don't think you're ever going to forget that, because that was such a testimonial of what Doc was and what he stood for, was outwork everybody. Leave it on the court. A pound of sweat is your credo. It's your signature. And, it's a rite of passage to be able to, say, I outworked everybody. And, those young men then, now men, in the moment that we were there, it was amazing to have that moment with them again. Because again, like I said, 5 years ago, pretty much everything changed for me with regards to COVID and getting hurt, and the reason why this podcast began. And I didn't have the luxury of having, to kind of step down or step out and be celebrated, on that, so proud of Coach, and I was at both of his award ceremonies for Induction Hall of Fame, one in New York City for the parochial New York State Hall of Fame, and then of course his final Hall of Fame induction at Colts Neck High School. So, to me, I was so grateful and felt beyond blessed to be able to be there, and sitting with his family, his cousin. His family was his immediate family was right across to the next table. Chris Mullen, Hall of Famer, was to my left, and such an amazing group. He actually had his college teammate and coaches in his mid 70s sitting at my table, and the kind words. You're talking about a half a century worth of memories and history. I mean, Chris Mullen's a New York basketball legend. Played at St. John's University, and you talk about amazing history and legacy. Coach Piccola was attending the following day Coach Lou Carneseca's 100th plus birthday in the city. And I believe the current St. John's staff and whatnot were attending, as well as many iconic players to pay their respect to this living legend. When the Big East, when the Big East was the absolute powerhouse in the nation. So the point of the matter, just wow, legacy. Looking back, I have to say that I think all of us have to have that reflection moment. And, whether it's you're a college player and you're done, or, you're a pro and you're done, or you're retiring from your job, you're retiring from, police force or school or whatever. And it is so important to celebrate it. And I made it a point, one of my favorite kids, and actually the whole crew, Brian and his posse. But this kid was special. He's a Brooklyn kid. He moved out here. He was hard-nosed. He was always the hardest worker in the room kind of mindset, soft-spoken, natural-born leader, and just an all-around great human. And I worked him out all the way through college, and his high school career was, it was a journey. We talk about tough love. Here was a kid that was given no chance at, a local high school. I believe it was Christian Brothers Academy. And he comes back home to his local high school and has a 1,000-point career, all shore first team, checks all the boxes, puts in the work, and he goes on to play at a great academic school. I think he was at Catholic University, had a great career. But like anything else, you're going to have adversity, right? I tell every one of my players, tell my kids, hey, there's always somebody coming in to take your job. And he had a remarkable recruiting class come in, and that was one of those schools where you could have like a 25-man bench. And I remember him calling me, or his dad calling me or texting me, if that was a thing then, and, basically saying, Doc, we got to go to work. We got to get Brian in shape. He's competing, not only is he the captain, but he wants to have, measurable minutes and minutes that matter. And, during that time, probably one of the most amazing things that I remember, having this and reflecting and being so thankful that he didn't get injured was, this guy was in college and had a home invasion with SWAT and I believe shots fired. And, again, just the toughness and the ability to persevere and endure something like that is just a testimonial to the great human and the great job his parents even did. But I could break down almost every one of my kids that way. And that's probably what I'd like to be remembered for, that I made a point to make a connection with all of those young men and women during that time. And, it was always to empower them. It was always to build them up. And I think one of my biggest lines that I would say is, hey, listen, your coach is going to tell you what you did wrong. I'm going to show you what to do right so that we can minimize the wrong. And it's not my job to scold you. It's my job to be hard on you, to believe that you can work harder than you've ever imagined. And on the other side of that hard work are results you never thought possible. And I live that to this day. This last couple of years has been tumultuous to say the least, and, there's been so many people in and out of my life, and, whether I've, hurt them or they hurt me, or, just a lot's gone on and a lot of water under the bridge. And the one thing I would say during that time is I made it a point to always make those kids believe, the sun was on their face and the wind, they had a full set sail, and they were moving and they could do anything because I believed in them. They believed in themselves. And that was a huge part of it. So today's podcast, to me, I love these power podcasts where we can get out and in, 18 to 22 minutes, just share some great anecdotal stories. And the message is, for me, is if somebody was looking back saying, hey, how do you remember Doc? Unbelievable energy, hardest worker in the room. He always brought it, and, hearing his history with his health and this and that, he was never someone that didn't show up. And as far as what I would tell my kids is grind, keep pushing yourself. You'll be amazed that if you can get past the fear or whatever you call it, right? What can happen, what amazing things you can accomplish. So, again, thank you so much for joining me today. Today's podcast was all about just celebrating my 20 plus years in sports performance and having an amazing, amazing time attending a very good friend and mentor's Hall of Fame induction and getting closure on that for me, as much as it was him, saying farewell to coaching, at least at that level. I did the same. And so I'll always be grateful for Coach having me as one of his guests and being featured in many parts of the basketball ceremony speech by all presenters. And I felt blessed and I was so beyond grateful. So thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. I hope you had some value in that. Reflect on the many things you've done and be grateful for them and share the story as well. We'll see you soon. Thank you.